Okay, now the other 10 disciples, they're overhearing this conversation. And they say and they get indignant. They're angry and they're criticizing Jacob and John. And in verses 42 through 45, it says, this is Jesus speaking, he says, "You know that the rulers of this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and give his life a ransom for many." Now, the next portion of scripture, verses 46 through 52, I'll be reading from the Message. Now, if you take out your map again, I'd like you to find Jericho. And Jericho, if you locate the Dead Sea, which is in this southern portion of Israel, and you look to the northwest, then you will see where Jericho is. Now, what is significant about Jericho? What happened there? Well, if you remember, that's where Joshua marched around the city and the walls came tumbling down after a series of marches. And who was inside the city? Do you remember? Rahab is correct, and she was the great grandma. Okay, so the disciples of Jesus, they spend some time in Jericho, and as Jesus is leaving town, leaving Jericho, there's a blind beggar by the name of Bartimaeus, and that just means Bar, B-A-R, standing for son of, and Timaeus, so he is the son of Timaeus, and he was sitting alongside the road. And then he hears that Jesus the Nazarene is passing by, and he begins to cry out because, of course, Jesus's reputation is to heal, to save, deliver, do all these wonderful things. And he says, "Son of David, Jesus, mercy, have mercy on me." And many tried to hush him up. You know what it's like. You're in a public place, maybe a grocery store, and somebody cries out. Maybe it's a child, maybe it's somebody who's, just lost their temper or whatever it is. And it just feels really uncomfortable to hear that when, you're not in a public setting where people are naturally shouting, like at a ball game, right? And so, he tries again and he said, "Son of David, mercy, have mercy on me." And what does Jesus do? He hears. He hears with the ears that hear. I hope that we do too. And so he just stops in his tracks and he says, "Call him over." And so the people, they rush over to Bartimaeus and they say, and I love the Message translation, it's kind of hip, it says, "Hey, it's your lucky day. Get up. He's calling you to come." And so throwing off his coat, he gets on his feet and he comes to Jesus. And Jesus says something that we would think might be obvious. Jesus says, "What can I do for you?" It might be obvious because we know that he's blind. Or it might be obvious because they're in a wheelchair. Or it might be obvious because, name, fill in the blank. Don't ever assume when you're laying hands on the sick and watching them recover, before you do that, you need to find out what that person wants from God. Okay, it may not be obvious. All right, so let's look at verse 52. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." "On your way," Jesus says, "your faith has saved and healed you." In that very instant, he recovered his sight and followed Jesus down the road. So he becomes part of the entourage that's following Jesus. It's our faith alone that saves. But faith is never alone. What did Bartimaeus have to do to have his sight? He had to hear that Jesus was there. He had to respond to that. He had to cry out. And then when they said, "Okay," he said, "Come," he threw off the things that were weighing him down. And he went up to Jesus, and then he had to ask for what he wanted. All these things are a part of our faith. It's not just going to be, "Oh, I wish, oh, I hope." No, you have to put faith into action, and then we get the results. Well, thank you for joining me today. This is a short part 2 of this, and then we'll come back and we'll study chapter 11 of the book of Mark. Thank you again for joining me. It's been a pleasure teaching you. Goodbye for now.